Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered if other animals can tap their feet to a beat like we do? Well, this fascinating new paper dives right into that question, and it turns out the answer is a bit more complicated and way more interesting than you might think. So, what is the big idea here? Scientists are debating whether animals, specifically monkeys in this research, can really synchronize to music the way humans do. Now, a group called McBride et al. Said, hold on, the data you have doesn't prove monkeys sing to a beat. And the researchers here, Vani Rajendran and Hugo Merchant, are saying, actually, you are looking at things too narrowly. The way we understand beats and synchronization might need a rethink, especially when we talk about animals. Their main point of disagreement is about what counts as a beat. McBride and their colleagues seem to think there is only one right way to hear the beat in music, especially the strong beat, the downbeat. They're essentially saying, if the monkeys aren't tapping to that exact human-like downbeat, then they're not really syncing to the beat at all. Rajendran and Merchant argue this is too strict. They say the claim that macaques do not synchronize to a beat is based on some old-fashioned assumptions about what a beat even is. First off, they challenge the idea that there is only one correct human downbeat. Think about it. Humans are incredibly diverse. Our taste in music is diverse, and how we perceive rhythm can vary a lot too. Even with something as simple as a series of evenly spaced sounds, sometimes our brains can hear them differently, as if there are strong and weak beats that alternate. And when people tap along to a steady beat, a metronome, even they don't all tap at the exact same time, there are individual differences. So, the idea of one single universally agreed upon beat phase for everyone, for any piece of music, is really not something scientists widely believe. The researchers also questioned the idea that there can be multiple interpretations of the beat happening at the same time. Think about dancing. When people dance, they often move to different rhythms or different levels of the beat simultaneously. They might move their hips to one beat and their shoulders to another, or even move in opposition. This paper, in fact, shows a video, which is super cool, of a monkey moving its left hand in a way that suggests it is tapping to a different rhythmic element than maybe its foot is. And if you and I listen to a song, we might tap to the main beat, but someone else might tap to a different rhythm, like the backbeat in funk music. If two people are moving in sync, but in opposite ways, are we going to say only one of them is really tapping to the beat and the other is just reacting randomly? That seems a bit unfair, right? This leads to the third assumption McBride et al. Make, that you can't tell if the monkeys are predicting the beat or just reacting to something that sounds important in the music if you don't know which correct beat they're supposedly following. The paper points out that even in humans, proving prediction versus reaction is tricky. We often tap slightly before the beat, which hints at prediction. But if the sounds come in very gradually instead of being sharp, our taps might actually come in a little after the beat. So, by just looking at whether you are early or late, you can definitively say if people are predicting or reacting. Current methods aren't perfect for drawing that line, even in humans. So, what did Rajendran and Merchant actually find in their macaque monkeys? They played music, and the monkeys, without any special training or rewards, started to tap along. And here is the key: their taps showed consistency in phase. What does that mean? It means that when the music shifted in a certain way, the monkeys' tapping also shifted in a predictable way. This is crucial. If they were just randomly reacting to loud sounds or something else, their taps wouldn't be so consistently related to the musical structure. The fact that shifting the music by a certain amount caused a significant shift in their tapping phase rules out simpler explanations like just matching the tempo or being drawn to any loud sound. This points to a stable, internally organized alignment with the rhythm. The researchers argue that this consistency in tapping phase, even if it is not to what we might consider the main human downbeat, is the real evidence for subjective beat perception. Because for humans, we know that our perception of beat isn't absolute, it is subjective. We can tap to different phases. And sometimes the most consistent tapping tells us where our subjective beat is. So, if the monkeys are showing this same kind of phase consistency, it suggests they too are perceiving and synchronizing to a subjective beat. Now, the monkeys didn't tap exactly like humans, and that is not a sign of failure, but rather a point of interest. The paper suggests that perhaps monkeys have more flexibility in how they perceive a beat than humans do. Imagine a song where multiple potential beats are competing in your head. Humans might have a strong tendency to pick one dominant beat. If monkeys don't have that same winner-takes-all approach, they might find it harder to lock onto a single beat, or they might be more willing to shift to a different beat if it is easier and still works. This differences, rather than disproving beat perception, opens up exciting new research avenues to understand the brain differences that lead to these behavioral variations. They also highlight earlier work, like studies with sea lions, which showed that animals can be trained to synchronize to a human-defined beat if they are rewarded for it. And in macaques, researchers have even been able to influence whether they tap slightly ahead or behind the beat by changing the reward system. The researchers in this paper could have trained their monkeys to tap to the human beat, but their goal was to explore the monkey's own subjective perception of rhythm, which is a much more fundamental question about their cognitive abilities. What is happening in the brain? The research points to incredible similarities across species. Even in animals, their auditory systems are built to pick up on rhythmic patterns and temporal context in sounds. This provides the basic building blocks for what we call beat perception. Studies in macaques have shown brain activity that acts like an internal clock, crucial for synchronizing with rhythms, and remarkably, studies in humans have found similar brain activity patterns in the motor cortex. This mounting evidence supports their 4Cs hypothesis, that musical beat perception and synchronization rely on coordinating basic processes that are present in many animals, not just humans. So, to wrap up, Rajendran and Merchant are making a really important point. They're asking us to consider that maybe, just maybe, humans are animals too, and using our own naturally human ways of moving and perceiving music as the ultimate, absolute standard for judging whether other animals can sync to a beat is a bit of a flawed approach. If we want to truly understand how abilities like music perception evolved, we need to be flexible. We need to use the same criteria to study beat perception in all species, including ourselves. Their data strongly suggests that macaques do indeed synchronize to a subjective beat. And this opens up a whole new chapter in understanding our shared musical minds with the animal kingdom. What do I think about this research? It's brilliant. The core of it is this idea that our definition of what counts as a beat might be too human-centric. By showing that monkeys exhibit consistent phase tapping, even if it's not to the exact same beat phase humans might pick. They're providing solid evidence for a more universal concept of beat perception. The key here is the consistency it shows intention and internal organization, not just random reaction. The strength of this study lies in its willingness to question established assumptions and look for evidence of fundamental cognitive processes. They're not just trying to make monkeys act like humans, they're trying to understand the core abilities that might underlie musicality. A limitation, as they themselves acknowledge, is that distinguishing between predictive and reactive behavior is still a challenge, even with their data, while phase consistency is strong evidence. Future research using more advanced neuroimaging or targeted perturbations could provide even more definitive answers about the predictive nature of the monkey synchronization. For me, the big implication is that our capacity for music might be built on much older, more fundamental biological mechanisms than we often assume. It suggests that the evolutionary roots of rhythm perception are deep and not solely a product of human culture. What's next? I'd love to see studies that explore different types of music and different species to see how wide this capacity for subjective beat perception extends. And delving deeper into the neural mechanisms they mention, comparing macaque and human brain activity during rhythmic tasks could be incredibly illuminating. What do you all think about whether animals can feel the music? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you enjoyed this dive into the incredible world of animal cognition and music. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science breakdowns, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.